Sairam. Let's start the study circle with 3 ohms. Om. 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 Dear Swami, we are so grateful to be able to meet here together in your presence today. While we are here together studying your word in Bhagavata Vahini, we ask that you open our ears and hearts to whatever it is you want us to learn. Please speak through each one of us and help us progress in our spiritual journey. Jai Sairam. Sairam, everyone. Thank you all for joining today. We are on the 93rd session and just wanted to, I've not changed the etiquette slide, so just want to remind you to mute your cell phones. You can unmute yourself before you speak, and let's be respectful and talk, have a decent discussion with open hearts and open minds. So with that, just wanted to review the last session. We started the session with the Kriya Yoga meditation, and then we watched a video by Swami Sarvapriyananda on who is liberated. We had a lot of discussion on what is mind and what is the mind capable of. We talked about the difference between the mind and the body and how pure consciousness cannot be realized until it is reflected. We did talk about the process that, we have to start with knowing who we are with the body at the gross level and then going into the subtle characters like the mind. We talked about how the mind traps us, and so it is an instrument that can be used both to attain moksha or be liberated and be in bondage as well. So with that, I'm just oversimplifying what we had spoken, but it was a discussion that we did focus on the mind and its capabilities. Does anyone have anything to add? Okay. So today we are going to continue with chapters 41 and 42. My idea was that we listen to these chapters and we can continue the discussion for the rest of the 7 sessions that we have left. The remaining sessions can be used to kind of accumulate and kind of have our sessions where we can have our takeaways drafted in the ways that will carry some weightage when we want to progress in our spiritual path. So with that in mind, I think today we will focus on chapters 41 and 42. We will be listening to those chapters. Chapter 41, I found the recording, so that is there. And chapter 42, I have recorded on by myself. So please bear with my voice during that time. So with that, I will get started.
Bhagavata Vahini, Chapter 41. The Message of Krishna's Advent. The king who had achieved the destruction of the agitations caused by desire and thus succeeded in the elimination of mind, folded his palms together and prayed with just one last desire urging him. Master, time is fast nearing its end so far as this body is concerned. The culmination of the curse of this age is rushing fast towards me. Of course, I am prepared in every way to welcome it most gladly. Nevertheless, so long as I am resident in this physical habitation, I have vowed I will engage myself in thoughts divine, recapitulation of the divine, listening to the divine. Let that vow be not broken to the slightest degree. May the short balance of the allotted time be spent in imprinting on my heart the charming lotus face of Nandanandana, the lovely divine child that illumined the home of Nanda. May that sportive form fill my consciousness and overflow, conferring on me immeasurable ananda. Describe to me the shower of auspiciousness that must have marked the hour when he was born. What were the miraculous events and happenings that revealed to the world at that time that God had come to earth? How did Kamsa develop the cruel determination to kill the divine child? And how was that determination fanned into a raging flame as the days passed? Tell me the story of the birth of that Kamsa and of the Lord as Krishna. May the final hour be blessed by that sacred story. It will certainly render my breath so holy that it will find consummation in Gopala. At this, Sukha became even more happy. Maharaj, he said, I am also filled with joy at the prospect of spending the few remaining hours in reciting the wondrous birth and the divine sports of Gopala. Gopala took birth for the sake of establishing dharma or righteousness. It is fraught with great mystery. Only those who have become ripe in wisdom through the chastening process of divine activity can unravel the mystery and grasp its meaning. For others, the world itself is a whirlpool of vile sin. They revel in its depths. They sink and float and finally dissolve themselves in it. We are under no compulsion to spend a thought on such persons. Maharaja, long, long ago, the world was ruled by a king of the Yadu dynasty named Ahuka. A large band of feudatories surrounded his throne and awaited his orders and paid him reverential homage, seeking peace and prosperity through his beneficent overlordship. He had 2 sons, Devaka and Ugrasena. When they grew old enough to assume the responsibilities of administration, the king had them married, and he placed on their heads a share of his own burden. Years slipped by. Devaka had 7 daughters, and Ugrasena had 9 sons. Devaki is the eldest of Devaka's daughters, and Kamsa is the eldest of the sons of Ugrasena. These 2 play vital roles in the story in which we are both interested. In olden days, Mathura was the capital city of Yadu dynasty. Within the precincts of this city, there lived the tributary ruler of Yadu, Prince Surasena by name. He had 10 sons and 5 daughters. The eldest son was named Vasudeva. Kunti was his eldest daughter. These princely families lived side by side, and the children grew. The flow of time sped fast and urged by the force of historic cause produced epoch-making consequences. Devaki, the daughter of Kamsa's paternal uncle, was given in marriage to Vasudeva. The marriage was celebrated on a grand scale. Rulers, kings and emperors, scholars, sages and saints assembled in large numbers. The city was packed with distinguished princes and personages. Kamsa took special interest in dealing out prolific and pompous hospitality to everyone. He had no sisters of his own. He loved Devaki as his dearest self. So he dowered her with costly raiment, precious jewels, and all the paraphernalia of regal glory. Everyone was delighted at the grandeur of the festival. On the 3rd day, the bride had to be sent to the groom's home with all customary presents and gifts. So, Kamsa himself drove the newlyweds in a magnificent chariot. When they were proceeding in a colorful procession through the decorated streets of the city, suddenly there was a brilliant lightning flash over the chariot. There was a blast of terrific sound, as if the world was being destroyed by a deluge all in one gulp. The flash and the blast stunned prince and peasant into pillars of immobility. All music was silenced that very moment. That instant, the silence was broken by a few clear words that exploded through the sky. The words were, "O Emperor Kamsa, you are behaving like a fool, unaware of coming events. This very sister, whom you love as your own self, whom you are now taking so affectionately in this chariot with so much pomp and pleasure, she will bear as her 8th child the person who will deal you death. Reflect on that coming calamity. The shining figure that spoke these ominous words disappeared from the sky. The populace, the princes, and the scholars who listened to the dreadful news of doom lost all trace of joy. Kamsa on the chariot was filled with fury of fire. He lost control of himself. He was overcome by confusion. The reins fell from his grasp. His heart was aflame with hate. His thoughts fled fast into fiercer and fiercer fears. At last, they took a decisive turn. With the sister alive, the killer will be born. When the sister's life is cut, she cannot bring forth the person who can deal him death. Thinking in this strain, he lifted the sister from her seat at the back of the chariot, grasping her plaited hair. Forcing her to stand up, he pulled his sharp sword from out of its scabbard with the vile intention of slicing off her head. Even the hardest heart recoiled from the awful sight. What a frightful thing was this, that he should attempt to kill the very sister whom he loved so long, so deeply, and whom he was escorting with such gusto, was so stunning by its contrast. No one could do anything to avert the disaster. Meanwhile, the bridegroom Vasudeva rose and held both the hands of Kamsa tight in his grasp. Dear brother-in-law, I too heard the voice from the sky. If harm comes to you, we too are sharers. We do not like any harm affecting you. We pray for your welfare without intermission. We shall never seek to inflict injury on you. For a brother like you, it is not proper to indulge in grievous disaster when everyone is reveling in joy. Release your sister from the hold. If you have such firm faith in the voice which declared that you will suffer death from the child that is to be born, I solemnly assure you that I shall entrust to your care every child that is born of her. I swear I shall do so. Let me tell you that this will solve your fear. If on the other hand you become a party in the slaughter of your sister, while this my offer is there, it will bring about disaster to you and the kingdom as reaction to this monstrous sin. When Vasudeva pleaded thus most piteously, Kamsa felt a little relieved, realizing that there was some validity in what his brother-in-law was saying. He loosened his hold and let Devaki fall into her seat. He said, "Well, be warned. Keep the word that you have now given me." With this, he directed his younger brother to take charge of the reins and returned to his palace. Of course, he returned, but he was torn between fear of death and affection for his sister. Though his bed was a soft bed of feathers, he suffered as if he lay on a bed of hot cinders. He had no appetite, no inclination to sleep. He was plunged in the terror of death. Kamsa spent 1 full year in this state. The brothers-in-law were in constant contact with each other. Meanwhile, Devaki became pregnant, and the 9 months drew to a close. She delivered a son. "I have given word to save your life," said Vasudeva to Devaki, when he handed over the newborn babe, rolled in warm clothing, to the tender mercies of Kamsa. However, Kamsa had no mind to kill the tender baby. He was delighted that his brother-in-law had kept his word. He said, "My dear brother-in-law, this babe can cause me no harm. The voice from the sky warned me only against the 8th child. Therefore, take back this child." Thus Vasudeva got the baby alive and placed it in the hands of Devaki. The mother was happy that her firstborn was restored to her. She poured out her heart in gratitude to God for this blessing. She conceived again, and the parents were afflicted with grief at the fear of Kamsa and what he might do to the child. They wanted children, but dreaded the fate that might befall them. Meanwhile, the sage Narada, who roams wide from world to world singing the praise of the Lord, appeared in Kamsa's court. He inquired from the emperor whether he was well and whether the kingdom was safe and prosperous. During the conversation, Narada revealed that the Yadavas were the gods come as men, and that Kamsa was an incarnation of Kalanemi, a famous Asura. He also said that the son to be born as the 8th son of Devaki will undermine the brood of Asuras and be the destroyer of the life of Kamsa himself. This acted like the pouring of oil or fuel on fire. Not content with this, he said, while taking leave of Kamsa, "Take every day that you manage to live as equal to a decade or more. Do not disregard death as a distant contingency." Hearing this warning, Kamsa was plunged into deeper anxiety. He feared that even little babes might bring about his death, and sent word for Vasudeva to come to him. Poor Vasudeva came shivering in mortal dread, lest some dire calamity might descend upon his head. When he put in his appearance, Kamsa flew into a rage and rolled and questioned at his face. "How many children do you have now?" Vasudeva had no tongue to answer. Fear that something terrible may happen if his answers overpowered him. His lips quivered as he replied, "Now I have 6. Kamsa yelled, "Well, tomorrow morning at dawn, you must bring all the 6 and hand them over to me." He uttered no word in return. He had to honor his word, but attachment to his offspring drew him back. He moved as if he was but a corpse that had managed to be alive. He came to where Devaki was fondling the 6 sons on her lap. When he told her that Kamsa had asked the sons to be given over to him, she held them in fast embrace and suffered agony that passes imagination. "Maharaja, for the sake of prolonging one single life, see how many innocent lives are sacrificed. You may wonder, why this horrid sin? But who can unravel the mystery of the divine? To the outward eye, it appears to be unpardonable infanticide. The inner eye may perceive in it the fruition of the sins committed by those very babes in the past, or the culmination of some curse that was pronounced on them. It may well be their passing into a superior level of birth. Who knows what lies in the recesses of their past, or in the caves of their future? Who knows why they were born, why they live, and why they die? The world observes only the interval between birth and death. They concern themselves only with that limited period, but the master and sovereign of all the worlds, past, present, and future, does not like that. He has more compassion than all men. He showers grace, weighing the 3 tenses of time, the 3 tiers of space, and the 3 traits of character. He knows best more than any man. So, the only recourse for man is to believe that everything is his will and be at peace, and immerse himself in the contemplation of his glory and grace. Maharaj Parikshit, next day, as soon as the sun rose above the horizon, Vasudeva took the children most unwillingly with the help of attendants, and with eyes firmly closed, he gave them over to Kamsa and burst into tears. The ego-centered maniac caught hold of each of them by the leg and beat them out of shape on the hard floor. Helpless to interfere and prevent, the unfortunate Vasudeva retraced his steps home with a heavy heart lamenting over the gigantic sin that brought about this woeful recompense. The royal couple were wasted in body through the terrific agony that underwent and bore it silently together. They felt every moment of living as an unbearable burden. God's will must prevail. One has to live until life lasts. They consoled themselves. Toughened by this feeling, they were dissolving their strength and physique in the streams of tears that grief engendered. Meanwhile, the seventh pregnancy, and surprisingly, it was aborted in the seventh month. Was it necessary?
I'm sorry, I thought the thing will continue. Okay, let me just add mine. I have mine.
Chapter 42 Consummation in Nandanandana.
Right.
Meanwhile, the seventh pregnancy came, and surprisingly, it was aborted in the seventh month. Should they inform Kamsa? If yes, how? They couldn't find the answer. When Kamsa learned about this, he suspected that the sister was capable of some stratagem to deceive him. So he put her and her husband in a closely guarded prison. The sage Sukha started telling about the most glorious event which revealed the reality of Krishna incarnation. Devaki and Vasudeva, who spent their days in prison, were indistinguishable from mad people. They sat with unkempt hair, lean and lanky through want of appetite and the wherewithal to feed their bodies. They had no mind to eat or sleep. They were slowly consumed by grief over the children they had lost. When their prison life entered its second year, Devaki conceived for the eighth time. It was wondrous. What a transformation it brought about. The faces of Devaki and Vasudeva, which had drooped and dried up, suddenly blossomed like lotuses in full bloom. They shone with strange splendor. Their bodies, which were reduced to mere skin and bone, as if they had been dehydrated, took on flesh, became round and smooth, and shone with a charming golden hue. Devaki's cell was fragrant with pleasing aromas. It cast a wondrous light and was filled with inexplicable music and jingle of dancing feet. Amazing sights and sounds indeed. Devaki and Vasudeva became aware of these happenings but were afraid to inform Kamsa, lest he hack the womb into pieces in his vindictive frenzy. They were anxious about the strange future of the son that would be born and restless with weird foreboding. And what of Kamsa? He knew with his time was fast rushing towards its end. He was torn by the greed to continue as unquestioned emperor of the realm. He was overcome by conspiratorial inclination. He overran the territories of the Yadu, Vrishni, Bhoja, and Andhaka and added them to his domain. He was so intent on establishing his dictatorial regime that he threw his own aged father, Ugrasena, into prison. Thereafter, his will was sovereign. When Sukha told the story, Parikshit interrupted. Alas, what folly is this! Knowing full well that his end was near, knowing that in the eighth pregnancy the person who was to destroy him was growing fast, knowing that the voice that spoke from the sky could not be untrue, Kamsa still resolved upon these acts of inordinate greed and unspeakable wickedness. What? This is unbelievable. Sukha burst into laughter. Maharaja, evidently you think that all those who know their end is drawing near will, like you, utilize the time at their disposal in seeking to realize the vision of him who is the embodiment of time. But such yearning as yours can arise only as a consequence of a favorable balance of merit acquired in previous lives. It cannot arise all of a sudden. Consider the vast difference between what you did when you knew that the allotted span of time was hastening to its end and Kamsa's undertakings when he knew that his end was in sight. These two attitudes are named God and demon, divine and demonic. Only thoughts of God and urges to do sanctifying deeds will emerge during the days for those who are equipped with divine virtues of eagerness to do good acts and to have good thoughts, faith in God, compassion towards all beings, contrition for swerving from the straight path, truth, non-violence, and love. On the other hand, those who are immersed in selfishness, egotism, greed, vice, violence, and unrighteousness will suffer in their last days from evil urges and will destroy themselves. The former attain beatitude, kaivalya, and the latter achieve only hell, naraka. The onlooker sees the same consummation, death, but the goal reached is distinct and is invisible to those around them. The goal is determined by the thoughts that arise in the mind of the dying. Destruction of life is common. The sight, darshan, of God is something to be won, to be earned. That is unique. Hence the proverb, when disaster is imminent, the intellect is perverted. Vinashakale viprita buddhi. Only those who are about to be destroyed will get and welcome evil intentions. Those who are to be blessed with the vision of God will hold fast in their last thoughts to the pure and elevating. When Shuka spoke thus, in all sincerity, Parikshit said, "No, this isn't the result of my effort or the consequence of merit acquired by me in previous lives. The fruit of the goodness of my grandfathers and father is directing me along the correct path. More than all, the illumination shed by gems of wisdom like yours and the consecrating effect of the grace of Krishna. These are heightening the devotion and dedication that rise within me. Of course, the association one is privileged or compelled to share has a promotional or adverse effect. Luckily, since the moment of birth, God's grace has been my guide and guardian. I was shaped and sustained by association with good men, comradeship with just and moral people, acquaintance with great scholars, and inspiration of the magnanimous deeds of my illustrious grandfathers. I also acknowledged the help rendered by wise and discriminating ministers who served as my right hand and earned and enjoyed the love and reverence of my subjects. This could never be the consequence of my efforts. However, excellent the seed, if the field is infertile, can the harvest be plentiful? However high my ideals are, if my kingdom had no high tradition laid down by my ancestors, no sages and scholars to instruct and inspire, no ministers to execute and elaborate in action, no subjects to appreciate and act the ideals, they could only be like the vessel of milk spoiled by drops of acid curd, right? Had it not been for them, my ideals would have evaporated, and I would have imbibed the vices of people who flatter me and become another hard hearted Kamsa. So, I conclude that Kamsa's sinful acts have to be attributed to a certain extent to the vices inherent in the scholars, elders, ministers, and subjects of Kamsa's kingdom. Of course, you are most competent to pronounce upon the correctness of this inference. Well, why should I waste the few remaining hours of my life in seeking faults in others or analyzing their causes and consequences? It is best that I sanctify every second. Tell me, Master, about the holy moment of birth. when my very breath, Gopala, appeared upon the earth. Praying thus, Parikshit fell at Sukha's feet and sat up, with eyes closed, eager to listen. He was yearning in happy expectation to learn from Sukha the amazing mystery of the birth. Sukha told the story. Maharaja, the fetus of the seventh pregnancy was taken and transferred to the womb of Vasudeva's other wife, Rohini by name, who was in Gokula under the protection of Nanda. This was done so that the child could grow into a companion and helpmate for Gopala. Rohini gave birth to a son who was named Balarama by Garga, the family preceptor. Since the child was extraordinarily strong in body and charmed everyone by his innocence and intelligence. Since he was transferred from Devaki's womb to Rohini's, he was also named Sankarshana, he who was attracted or drawn. Meanwhile, the 9 months of eighth pregnancy were completed. Devaki and Vasudeva held their lives in the grasp of their palms, for they were agonizing over what might happen any moment. When would the delivery take place? What would Kamsa do to punish them or to destroy the enemy he feared? They sat helpless in great anguish, without food or sleep. When Kamsa learned that the 9 months had passed, he took extra precautions to see that the child did not escape him. He ordered Vasudeva and Devaki to be shackled with chains on hands and feet. He locked the doors of the prison with even more formidable contrivances. He placed larger numbers of even more alert and able guards around the prison. He arranged that once every 5 minutes, the guards must check and satisfy themselves that the inmates were within the prison walls. Kamsa was ceaselessly worried and anxious about the birth and what might happen to him. But who can hinder the inscrutable operation of the will of God? Can the divine mystery be penetrated and unraveled? Fools who cannot grasp the truth, who cannot recognize divinity and measure the power of God, who have no faith in God, live in the delusion that their petty plans will save them and that they can triumph through their own efforts. The fact is that not even the smallest success can be won without God's grace. Though true, we shouldn't sit with folded hands, believing that a thing will accomplish itself if and when God wills. Human effort is essential, and man must himself make a trial. He must use the strength and skill with which he is endowed, and resolve to go ahead with the work, laying the responsibility for success on God. For without the grace of God, every effort will be fruitless. One night, lying on the floor of the prison room, Devaki developed labor pains. She fixed her mind on God and looked intently at the flame of the little oil lamp, anxiously asking herself, "What will happen to me? What lies in the future for me?" Suddenly the flame went out and darkness filled the cell. She beheld an effulgent form, casting a strange splendor, standing before her. She wondered who it might be. She called on Vasudeva, afraid that it might be Kamsa in that shape. She was lost in confusion and doubt about the identity of the phenomena before her. Suddenly the form became clear. It was armed with conch discus, the mace. The fourth hand was held in the have no fear, Abhaya pose. It said sweetly and softly, "Don't grieve. I am Narayana. I am to be born in a few moments as your son, with the intent to wipe away all your travails, in answer to the promise I made when you visualize me as a result of your earnest asceticism. Don't be anxious about me, but be witness of the drama that is about to be staged. In all 14 worlds, there is no one born or to be born who can inflict on me the least harm. Be assured of that. Even when some little anxiety affects you as a consequence of affection for the child you bore and of delusion fogging the mind, you will be able to witness immediately miracles that will reveal my nature. No sooner am I born than the shackles will fall off your hands and feet. The doors of the prison will open by themselves. Take me from here without anyone's knowledge. to Nanda's home in Gokula and place me by the side of his wife, Yashoda, who is having labor pains this very moment. Bring back to the prison the baby girl that she has delivered to keep her with you. Then send word to Kamsa. Until he gets the news, no one either in Mathura or Gokula will notice you or apprehend you. I shall arrange it. He shone in divine splendor, blessing Devaki and Vasudeva. He entered Devaki's womb as an orb of light. Within minutes, the child was born. The time was 3:30 a.m., the auspicious hour of Brahmamurta, the divine power to the divine power to delude brought sleep, sudden and log-like, on all guards, on all the watch. They fell in their places and were caught in sleep. The thick iron chains that bound Vasudeva's hands and feet fell off in a trice. The doors and gates flew open. Though it was the darkest hour of the night, the cuckoo cooed with a sudden spurt of joy. Parrots announced the heavenly happiness they felt. The stars twinkled, for each of them was smiling in inner joy. The rain god showered flower drops of rain on the earth below. Around the prison, flocks of birds clustered in happy song, twittering sweet melody. Vasudeva realized that all this was the manifestation of the charm of God. He turned towards the newborn child and was astounded at what he saw. Was it true? He asked himself, or was it a mental illusion? He was fixed to the spot like a pillar. For Maharaja, encircling the baby was a brilliant halo of light. The baby laughed outright, seeing the mother and father. It appeared that the baby was about to speak. Yes, they heard the words. Now, without delay, take me to Gokul. Vasudeva did not tarry. He spread an old dhoti on a bamboo mat and placed the baby on it. He tore the scarf of an old sari of Devaki, covered the baby with it. Then he moved out of the open doors and gates, past the sleeping guards. He noticed the little drops of rain that fell from the sky, and he was sad that the newborn child would soon be soaked. But when he turned back, he found the snake, Adisesha, following his footsteps, preventing the rain from wetting the baby, holding the ribbed umbrella of his broad hoods over the child. At every step along the road, Vasudeva noticed auspicious and favorable signs. The sun had not yet risen, but the lotuses bloomed in all the tanks and leaned towards Vasudeva on their stalks. Though it was a night with no expectation of moonlight, perhaps through the yearning to have a look at the divine baby, the full moon peeped through the clouds, its cool rays illumining only the bamboo mat on which the baby lay, along the entire route. The baby that attracted all this auspiciousness was placed in Nanda's home, and the child that had been born there was brought and placed into Devaki's hands. No sooner was this done than Vasudeva burst into tears. He couldn't stop crying. Even while these words came from his lips, Parikshit exclaimed, Krishna, Krishna. Everyone turned and hastened towards him. They saw a snake crawling away fast after biting Maharaja's right toe. It was clear to all that the end had come. Everyone echoed Parikshit's words and repeated, Krishna, Krishna, Dwarakavasa, Vrindavana Vihara. The vast gathering had no other thought than that of God, no other word than the name of God. The Maharaja fell on the ground, repeating Krishna, Krishna. Men who were learned in the Vedas recited Vedic prayers. Devotees sang the glory of God in chorus. Ascetics and sages were sunk in repetition of the name and meditation. Sukha shed tears of inner bliss. He said, the Maharaja has reached Gopala. He asked for the funeral rites to be undertaken and went away without being noticed. The word Sukha means parrot. Yes, he was the parrot that plucked the ripe filled nectar-filled fruit called Bhagavata from the tree of the Vedas and enabled the world to taste it and be nourished by it. May the world relish the fruit, strengthen itself through it, and derive the Atmic bliss that it can confer. May humanity attain the Lord. Nanda Nandana. Sai Ram.
Okay, Sairam. This is the end of the Bhagavat Vahini, and that Swami has written. And I do have a few discussion pointers here, but if anyone has anything to add or anything to comment on, this is a great time to do that. Of course, we can go through these questions and discuss the story and the lessons learned thereof. Okay, so let's just talk about it. So, in the 41st chapter, Swami talks about that the last thought at death determines our destiny. What does this reveal about the power of the mind, in shaping our spiritual journey? And what should we be actually working towards if the last thought is something that would determine our destiny? I mean, that is a lot of that he gives a lot of importance to the last thought.
Sairam.
Sairam.
We have talked about it in the past also, because we don't know, nobody knows when the last is going to come. So the thought, every thought that we have, if it is all God centric, then obviously that's going to, the destiny that is determined by that thought is going to be uh, leading us to more or better spiritual level next life, I think.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, we have to we have to watch our thoughts. And then we have to work towards um, the thought being God centric. When I say
Mhm.
God centric, that is any sadhana or any thought that leads to questioning ourselves, like who am I, proceeding towards that. Um, I think that's what we have to do. We have talked about it in the past. I think that's what has to happen.
Yeah, we have to be very aware of the thoughts. Yeah. The power of the mind is really something that I think we should dwell on. Yeah. Anyone else has anything to add? We can move along to the
Sairam.
next. Yes,
Yeah,
Ira.
so,
Please
yeah,
go ahead.
just I want to add here,
Mhm,
um, adding to what Venkat just said, we
mhm.
don't know when the end is coming.
Right.
So it can be very sudden. And therefore, all the practice is to keep remembering all the time so that, it becomes a habit. If it becomes a habit, it's likely that you will remember it at that time also. But the other contradicting factor is that, when death is approaching, quite possible that you will be more attached to the body and the mind and the body mind complex that, uh, you may be dragged on the other way. You will not be thinking about God, but you are going to be thinking about this. So that is why it is very, very important to train all the time to be, grateful to what we have and not focus on the negatives.
Absolutely.
Sairam. See, here, Swami himself, I mean, we have a wonderful comparison between Kamsa and Parikshit.
Yeah.
Both know their death is coming,
Yeah.
and how each one handles it. One who is completely not worried about the death and want to spend the time towards spiritual progress, whereas the other one is completely egoistic and is afraid of losing the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that probably that fear will come, and as Shankaran said, I think when we are not, I mean, when we are healthy and at least not expecting death to come in the near future,
Mhm.
um, I think that's when we have to do the sadhana to focus on train our mind to be more God centric. I'm just using the word God centric, but it means anything that is not materialistic. If we can train ourselves in that, at that time, when we know that there is something that's happening that we could lose our lives in the near future, we will not be attached uh, that much to the body. I don't know if we can completely
Yeah.
remove the attachment, but I can see Dayanand was one good example of how to deal with that situation. I admire how he was able to handle that. I mean, this is based on what I know, but of course, uh, he didn't cry, weep, or ask why me, all
Yeah.
those things. So I think it is possible. We should train ourselves to be like
Yeah.
Sairam, in the course of that paragraph, there were a lot of things that got revealed. Um, so, one of them talked about, the past karma decides on what your thoughts are going to be like. This, well,
Correct.
both were born, but at the same time. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, not at the same time. Parikshit was born later, but Kamsa, uh, his thought was always only about self and his power and things. So all his samskaras were overpowering him to be thinking only in the body mind complex, and that's what determined his life. So whereas Parikshit on the other hand was had more good karmas to help him. uh, so what this says is that we are in this world where a lot of people are going to be born with this kind or that kind, and we have to recognize it. And then there are some of us who are born, we are thinking maybe that is not the right thing to do, this is the right thing to do. At least we are getting exposure to that, and I think that is the one message we are getting here. Just know that that will not help. This positive thoughts about God will help you in the long run. The other one, whatever is going to happen, it's going to happen. You cannot help that. um, the second part was where suddenly Devaki talks about fantastic philosophy when he's asking for all the children, and
Yeah.
she said, whatever is their karma, that's what is going to happen. So they probably have brought all something into that, and their life has to come to an end because that is what the karma brought about. So many of the things that happens to us, we have to also take it in that light. When something that is not going in our way, we start getting very angry and very worked up. So
Yeah.
that's also part of what life is defined. So I think those are two messages I saw.
Thank you, Shankaran. Okay, we can move along. Again, just like Shankaranji brought up the stark difference between how Kamsa handled with fear and violence instead of surrender, whereas Parikshit took it in stride. And so there is obviously just one Parikshit, and that's why we still are talking about him, and divine beings like Swami are writing about him. So why do humans always, I mean, we as human, why is it our nature to resist this um, transformation or acceptance? And maybe it's not transformation, it's acceptance of the truth. Why do we do that? Is it ego? Is that where we?
that. Saidam, just your earlier comment
Hmm.
that there was only one Parikshit.
Yes.
See, earlier, like a few months back, when we were having the study circles, Saujanya revealed that among the patients who
Yeah.
I mean, she handles and who are nearing their last period of lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, some of them are extremely
Accepting.
uh, accepting also, and some of them are extremely questioning as to why me and all that, going through all that. She also mentioned about one person who would be extremely calm and yet not give up on any of the treatment to be made. So it was not like, oh, I don't want to get treated, I don't want to live. It was not like that, but
Mhm.
uh, taking everything in stride and moving along. So what I'm trying to say is, even this day, both examples of both are still seen. I think
Yeah.
both are existing even today. But to answer your question about it's, I think we all fear change. That's what it is. Death. If we all know what happens after death, this fear would not happen. So because we don't know what happens after death when we are alive, that is probably the reason why we resist that transformation. We don't want to die.
Mm.
That's my take on that.
Sairam? Uma, do you want to say something? Because I see you're unmuted, but I can't hear you.
Hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So in this book, it says everything, right? I don't know if only the last, it didn't say so, but the last thought at the death determines our destiny. It is the culmination of,
Destiny.
yeah, destiny, right? It's a
Mm.
culmination of whole life, how we lead our life, right? How we lived. So to having good thoughts, faith in God, compassion,
Mm-hmm.
towards all beings, all this also will set us in the right straight path. All Swami's values, practicing truth, non-violence, love, all that, they all help to have the good thought at the end. It is not going to happen overnight.
Mm.
At the same time, if we have this greed, ego, and all that, then that will prevent us from having good thoughts and leading a moral life. So that is also there.
Mm.
But then Parikshit says it is not just the past karma that makes him behave differently or, in a higher way. He says also that you have this uh,
Family. Mm.
moral just, yeah, and then the company you keep, the
Mm.
satsangs, right? The acquaintance with scholars and, all that great deeds done by his ancestor, that is part of it. But in the current life, how we live our life, he says that how he kept that company, that all contributed to how we received, quote and unquote, the death sentence, you
Mm.
know. So
Mm.
that kind of cultivate your heart to deal with things like that. If we are caught up in that materialistic world and selfish way, greed, thinking only about ourselves, and then our heart is not, cultivated to deal with these kind of calamities or death,
Right.
right? So if we don't know what is going to happen after death, it is all the more the reason to do the right things, live a moral life in this life. Yeah.
But generally, when we are in fear, if that is
Mm.
what, in fear, we always do wrong things. We
Mm.
we don't do the right things. That's what I think.
Yeah. See,
Because
Right
we
up.
want to protect. Yeah. Yeah. Please.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. But then the fear comes because of the ignorance. We don't know, right? Why do we do the wrong things? What makes us do the wrong thing? Think about it,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we don't have the moral compass to tell us what is right and wrong,
Right.
right?
That's typically what happens when we have fear.
Mm.
Because when we have fear, I think faith is out the window. So
Yeah, we
that is, yeah.
right. We should take a moment to ground ourselves in the faith. That is
Yeah.
where the faith and surrender, they all come into picture. When fear comes, we can ask for the higher self
Yeah.
in the God to help us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry, Venkat,
Right
you
up.
wanted to? Yeah.
No, yeah. A couple of things that I that came to mind.
Yes.
One is when we talk about um, the merits that we have gained in the past lives, that is a tricky thing. It should not be handled in such a way that, hey, I am like this because of what I was in the previous life, and you take that as an excuse and
Right.
continue to be more body centric or
Yeah, you
mind
have to
centric.
do better. Yeah.
You have to definitely, you have the ability to change that in this life. We should
Yeah.
not take that as an excuse. Now, the past life may give you the surroundings that you have in this current life, but that doesn't mean that you cannot change it. The second thing is that if you do, as Umaji and of course Sankarandi, we all shared, if we do all the right things towards a better spiritual or elevated spiritual level, then the entire surrounding, for example, Parikshit, um, he was not, when he was cursed right from that time onwards, or even before, he was so kind and all that. So everything worked in line towards that. So his ministers were nice because he was really nice, and everybody were dharmic because he was dharmic. So if he had been egoistic, then the surroundings also will turn out to be egoistic. So then that fear of, oh, who is going to do this in my absence, that will come, you know. So if you're all dharmic and then the whole surrounding will work towards that, then you don't have any fear. Oh, if I'm gone, that doesn't matter. Nothing will change. Everything will continue. So that confidence comes. Then that fear goes away. So, in other words, if we do the right thing, dharmic, and not be body mind centric every moment of our time, the whole surrounding will enable us to progress faster in that progress. That's what I think. That path.
Does anyone else?
Yeah, he says, Parikshit, in one of the paragraphs that, however excellent the seed is,
Yeah.
the field is infertile. How can the harvest be plentiful?
Right.
So he means even if we are, past karma, we have good things, but still we have to do that our part in this current life. He says, if there is no sages or scholars to guide him, and
how will he?
right, even for the government, the surrounding people, they have to be moral too, right?
Yes.
That shapes the king or the ruler, or in the household, the parents, if they have ideals, in their household to be how to be a good parent,
Right.
then they will emulate that, and
Absolutely.
it passed down to the children too. So that way, it is not just our good karma, not just our thing, but how the company we keep, what we read, what we practice, have faith and surrender in the teachings of our guru, all that plays a big role.
Yes. Sorry, I know Manojji wanted to say something. I think he
Yes,
went.
so definitely.
Please go ahead.
Just wanted to uh, definitely, as mentioned earlier, satsang is important. Old sanskaras definitely play a role. As we have listened to the story, Kansa was in previous janma, he was Kalanemi. He was a demon who came as Kansa. So old sanskaras were there. And but because of old karmas, Prahlad was also born to Hiranyakashipu family. But
Yeah.
because of his good deeds and his devotion, he attained that level. And same with Dhruva, we have
Yeah.
seen that. So fear is inversely proportional to faith. Yeah, if our faith is less, fear would be more.
Yeah.
If faith is more, definitely fear would be less. So, as mentioned, it's all the result of ignorance. Once we do satsang, read Vedanta, read the divine stories, we come to know that this is defect, that acceptance will come slowly, will come in, that the death is the truth. Death has to come. So that fear might go down once, as we keep listening to all these stories and keep listening to the Vedanta. That fear definitely should be gone down. And the difference between Parikshit and Kansa's last days, as observed by Venkaji, was a very excellent observation. Two different personalities facing the death, last days of death, differently. So, whatever we have done the whole life will be our nature, will be our personality, and that's what we are. And that's what our thoughts would be at the last moment, and that's what our words would be at the last moment. So no one can imagine to say Krishna, Krishna, Krishna at the end of the life, when the whole life they have lived the life of a Kansa. They,
Yeah.
the, the,
Mhm.
the, the thought will not come and the words will not come. So I think we're at time, ending the thing with a lighter sentence, lighter brief story. So this lady was dying, and the family has listened to the story that when you are dying, if at the last your last words come to be Krishna, you will go to the divine ending. You will meet the Lord. So the family kept trying to tell that old lady, say Krishna, say Krishna. She would not say it. Then they brought the lady, the daughter-in-law's name was Krishna, and sorry, son-in-law's name was Krishna. So they brought him in front of her and asked her, "Who is he?"
Mm.
Uh, with the assumption that she would finally say Krishna and that would be her last words. But since she did not have the sanskara, she kept saying, he's Sharda's husband. He's Sharda's husband. He would not say Krishna. That was just a small joke I wanted to add. So whatever you have done the whole life, that sanskara will play the role at the last moment. You cannot expect at the last moment that you will start saying or thinking of Lord when you have not done that the whole life. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, satsang is the key. We have to continue doing that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining today. We will continue our discussion on Saturday, and and once we'll start with the meditation as always on Saturday, and continue with the discussion on chapters 41 and 42. As always, our life application is on the breath. Focus on the breath. Take your time, whatever time the permits for you, and make it your practice. With that, end the meditation. Shanti, Shanti. Thank you all for joining. Okay.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.